Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about paying tithes, the 10% that you're supposed to pay, and basically the benefits of it as well. Um, with paying tithes, even unbelievers are able to reap the benefits of this. I know one of my brothers had um, done a lot of research about millionaires and people that have not only wealth but generational wealth. So not just for like just you, but also wealth where your children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, um, and how these families are able to, obtain that and keep it up basically. And he found that the majority of them, they tithe even though they're unbelievers, or in another religion or whatever. They always tithe, and that was one thing that, even though it's something that God requires of us, but also it's a universal kind of protocol, as you would say. So anybody can benefit. So I'm going to go over two verses. Um, like I've stated before, I'm reading from the Holy Bible, the King James Version. And then also I'm using my commentary as well, as y'all all should know by now that I use to study and do more research. So, the first verse is in Leviticus chapter 27, and verse 30. So it says, "And all that tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord." Um, and also, to let you know, even though that's the only verse I'm going to read, and once again, it's multiple areas that talk about tithing to the Lord in the Bible. So, like I said, things in the Bible are very, very repetitive. It's not just listed once, but in Hebrew, the word tithe automatically means a tenth. So, so when it's saying tithe, it means a tenth of whatever you own. So, um, looking at my commentary on that same verse, it says a tithe or a tenth of the grain and fruit belong to the Lord. And when it's talking about land and fruit and stuff, it's just talking about, back then, that was what they exchanged for money, and stuff. Is, they worked the land, and that was the money that they got out of it, which was the food and stuff that grew. So it's all the same. Today, we just say money, 10% of whatever your income is. So, the second verse I'm gonna look at is Numbers chapter 18, verse 26. And it says, "Thus speak unto the Levites, saying to them, when ye take of the children of Israel the tithes which I have given you from them for your inheritance, then ye shall offer up a of heave of offering of it for the Lord, even a tenth part of the tithe." And in my commentary, that same area is saying is the Levites receive tithes from the people, but they in turn were responsible to give a tenth to the priest. This tenth was offered as a heave offering to the Lord. So um, I know it's a lot of criticism around this topic with a lot of people that don't feel like, they should pay the tithes, and they think that all the money is going to the bishop and pastor so they can have a mansion house and ride around in luxury cars and stuff like that, and they don't see a purpose in it. Well, as you may or may not know, my mom is a bishop and pastor, and my grandfather was a bishop and pastor, and then on my father's side, my grandfather was a bishop. So, and then I have several ministers and even other pastors, aunts and stuff like that, and uncles as well. So it runs throughout my whole family. So basically, if you're going to a church and um it's a false prophet, and they're not teaching things of the word appropriately, and everything, definitely you should leave and find a place that's teaching appropriately. If they are teaching appropriately, and everything, um, I mean, when you go to work and it's your job, you expect to make money, right? Because you have to live, you have to buy groceries, you have to pay your mortgage or rent payment, you have to pay for gas, and the list goes on. And so in ministry, when the pastor or bishop and even um, the other ministries within the church, um, that's their job too. Um, my mom, she was a full time bishop and pastor. At one point in time, of course, she wasn't. Uh, as a minister or whatever, she would preach occasionally. But even then, like well, I don't know back then if she would get paid. If you do a sermon, you would get paid. It's almost like a PRN job, even though she had another full time job. But this is also a job as well. And it's not like you can get up there and just, preach. You have to do research. You have to um, read your Bible. You have to pray and spend time with God so He can lead you in the right direction. Um, so it takes work, you know. So even though it's not worldly work out here, that is work as well. And so in exchange, when somebody has committed their life into saving people's soul, they need to be compensated for that, because it's taken away from their time, and doing just a regular job or whatever. And even though we didn't have a Mercedes or anything like that, or drive around in a nice car, I mean, we live like a regular middle class. My grandpa, they live like regular middle class. Um, and then on top of that, there are committees within the church. So it's not like you well, most churches like this, and I would be suspicious of churches that don't have this in place, but most churches have a committee. And so the money is not going straight to the pastor. It's a committee that decides um, how much of a salary the pastor gets, and then other um, ministries within the church gets. So it's not where the pastor says, well, I'm going to take 100% of the money and stuff. Well, it's other things to pay in a church other than even the ministers and ministries in the church. They have a light bill. The building you go to, is a mortgage if the church is not paid off. They have to have the, church cleaned up and stuff. So it's like a regular running a household. They have bills as well. They have property taxes that come every year. And like my main church, at my mom's church, they also have an academy. They have an academy that goes all the way up to fifth grade, I believe, unless they had been adding each, grade each year. But I believe it only goes up to fifth grade right now. And they also have an after school program. However, they've separated those entities within the church as far as, you know, financial going into each section. But but you have to look at all of that. You have to look at the driveway where you park at when you come to the church. That has to be maintained and kept up. The building, when things start to break down, they have to have insurance on the church, so those things can get repaired. Um, I know when I was younger, and I think sometimes it's still going on today at the church, somebody was always breaking in, taking stuff like, silly stuff or whatever. And they would break a window. Um, it's just all types of things that go on in the church. So if you feel like the church that you're at is a false prophet, then that would not be a church that I would want to be attending and paying tithes. But if you're, going to a church and found a church that is decent, you should be paying 10%. And you have to understand what it says in this scripture. Like, everything that you have is the Lord's anyway. All 100% of your money, the house you live in, the clothes on your back, your cars, all of that, it belongs to the Lord. It's all the Lord's. So all he asks for is 10% to give to his house of worship. And that's for it to continue on. So those bills can be paid, and um, the flock can have a building to go to and worship. So, I mean, I don't get, and maybe, most people don't know those details, or they don't think about those details when they don't want to pay tithes. And actually, when I was looking at this, I actually saw a study where it said only 5% of Christians tithe. I was like, wow, wow. Now I understand why so many people in the Christian community struggle on a financial basis. That's why you are struggling financially, because you are not recognizing God, that He owns all of it. And so, because of that, you are suffering. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So, when um, when I decided to start working, which was like at 15 years old, my mom told me, she only told me one time, and that was it. She said, make sure you always pay your tithe, and give that to the Lord. I said, okay. So even, at 15, when I was in high school and stuff like that, I always paid my tithe. I have always paid my tithe up to this point, and I have never ever lived paycheck to paycheck. I have never had to struggle, not one day in my life, and I have been consistent. It's not like, I pay once a year or once every 2 years. No, I immediately I give those tithes to the Lord. Now things are electronic. So when I, get any type of income or whatever, even before Sunday, I'm logging into my account and I go ahead and pay my 10% before it's spent on anything else, because I am dedicated in giving that to the Lord, because it's the Lord's, it's not mine. And so let me tell you, more. So I moved out of my parents 2 months after graduating high school. And the job that I got, I was only getting paid $7 an hour. And at that time, minimum wage was $5.15. So I was just making barely a little bit over minimum wage. And this excludes all the working and stuff that I did in high school, which I did make 5.15 um before I turned 18 or whatever. But but at 18, my first job was $7 an hour, and that was pretty much all I made for several years after that. And with that, I don't know if y'all looked at my other videos where I explained the first year I lived in an apartment. And I've always, all my life, pretty much have lived by myself. I've always been able to provide for myself. Well, the Lord provides for me, because I'm obedient to this, I believe specifically. And so I lived in an apartment for a year. Then at 19, I decided to buy a house. So I brought a house that I still have to this day. At that time, I got my pay got bumped up $1. So I was making $8 then when I brought my first house. My first house. And to me, it just made um, financial sense, because I'm a numbers girl, so I love math. And even then, when at that time, we had our checkbooks. We had actually had a book that was the checks, and I would actually balance out my checkbook, because um, I don't think at that time like online banking and stuff was popular. So you can just log in and just see your bank account information immediately. So, back then, you wrote it in the checkbook and then you would add it up. So, like I said, I love math. That is my favorite subject, and I know how to do some calculations. And let me tell you, every time I would do it, it would never calculate up. I always had plenty of money in my bank account. So at that time, I was bringing in approximately $1,200 a month. $1,200 a month. So out of that, I was able to buy my house and have extra. And on top of that, I was in, I was going to school full time, and I was paying for that out of my pocket. I did eventually get a credit card, but the maximum on my credit card was $300. $300, y'all. So, mama had helped me a little bit to pay on my books, but and that was only for the first 2 years of me being in college. I went to a community college, yes, because I couldn't get in a university. um, and they wouldn't allow me to get on financial aid. I applied for financial aid. I got denied. It said I had to have a child, basically out of wedlock. Or I had to be married and for us to have, low income. But I could not get on financial aid. I tried multiple times, but it wouldn't let me. So I had to pay for school out of my pocket. Um, so I was able to pay for school, pay for my own place, my house. So I had a mortgage then, and still had money left over. And I would look and I was like, it never added up. I don't know how, I had extra money in my bank account every single time. And then after months of trying to figure out, I finally just gave up and said, well, the Lord's blessing me and I'm not going to worry about it. And then on top of that, this was during this time in my youth. This is where when people would come to me a lot because they were struggling financially. Now, I'm talking about people living in sin, where I know one of my friends, she was actually living with her boyfriend. So both of y'all have a full time job, and you can't even, y'all live in an apartment with one bedroom and can't even afford the bills. And so, it was a couple of times that I helped them, pay their rent. And just not them. I've had married couples, people, married, come to me, ask me for several $100s because situation, and I would give them the money, and my mama always told me, if you don't have if you need that money in return, then don't give it to me. I mean, don't give it to people. But if you not expecting it, that means you have enough money that you can give to people if you want. And so I was like, okay, so I never needed the money, but you expect to get when people tell you, oh, I'm gonna give it back to you and stuff. Do you think that happened? It happened a couple of times, but the majority of times, no. And that's why I ended up stop. And I'll just be honest, I stopped giving people money because it's not helping the situation. And I ended up one of my friendships ended up being ruined over giving her, money or whatever. And it was because I saw, like, oh, you're able to go to New York to go see a man and hook up with him, but you don't have money to pay, what you owe me back with, and you drove up there, so you had to put it. So I remember that, but anyway, so it ruined a friendship. And I eventually realized this is not helping people. So when people, and pretty much at that time, once I, you know, um, made that decision or whatever, and they realized that I wasn't giving no more money, then people stopped coming to me for money. I've had people call me, oh, my house is gonna be on, foreclosed, and we're gonna be homeless if you don't help us. Okay. Um, and in this specifically, a family member, married, both of them got full time jobs. And I'm just like, you got to learn how to manage your money better. Um, but, anyways, but even, going on throughout my life, even right now, like it's been over 5 years since I've had a permanent job. I don't have to work. And yes, I have a business and some other things going on, but even in my business, it's still growing. I don't even take a paycheck from that. And I, get out here and, as you may know, I helped out with COVID. I wasn't doing anything because everything shut down, so I couldn't market my business because all healthcare facilities weren't allowing anybody to come in. So it shut everything down. So Um, I decided to go out there and help because I had left bedside nursing um, at least 7 years ago or so. Um, but I decided to jump back in. So basically, I'm doing it just to kind of interact with people, so my light can shine and I can show them Jesus. So it's not something I have to do. I know this was a couple of years ago. I was dating a gentleman, and he was like, he asked me one time, he said, I don't understand. How is it that you're living and paying your bills and you don't ever work? And he did not understand that. And even to this day, I still don't understand. I'm not worried about it. But anytime I get any income, I pay my 10%. I'm not stressed out. I don't live in a poverty stricken state. Like I said, I lived in that apartment 1 year after I had moved out of my parents' house, and I do not like apartments. It's not for me. So outside of that, either I always lived in an actual house or a townhouse. It's my preference. So I always have a 2 or 3 bedroom house um, that I live in. And like I said, I don't live in bad conditions. That's just me. And I have made my life comfortable for myself. And so um, that's what I want to share with people. Like, you don't have to struggle. Pay your tithes. Pay, you know, the if you can't find one, and I don't know if you've heard my story previously, like I haven't found a church here in Colorado that I live at that I would consider my church home. But however, I'm still a member back in North Carolina at my mama's church, and they thankfully are having services, on YouTube now, so I can be a part of it, and that's such a blessing because I've been trying to get her to get on YouTube for years. And so I'm thankful for that. So I can take a part of that. But even outside of that, like, if you can't find a church in person that you feel like you can trust to donate or whatever, you feel some type of way, um, I mean, it's plenty of, preachers on TV. Um, that you can find and that you can listen to their word. I know one particular lady that I just love her. I liked her older teaching style or preaching style from like a decade ago. But she is focused on Jesus Christ, and I just really like her preaching style, and her name is Pastor Melissa Scott, and her church is in California. And actually, her husband, that is deceased, he's been deceased for quite a while. He was the bishop, and then bishop or pastor, whatever. And then he ended up passing away, and so she ended up um, getting into the role or whatever. But she is excellent, and she actually breaks down. She's able to read Hebrew, and like I said, that Bible, the closer you can get to the original version of the Bible, the better. And the Bible was written originally in Hebrew terms. So she will actually break it down. She'll write up there the Hebrew uh, picture, whatever it looks like, and break down what it actually means. And I just love it. I'm a very detailed person, so I love, that detail. And I know everybody is not like that. They don't want to know all that. They just want to know, what, the Bible is saying. But the thing is, like, things mean something different what it was, 1,000 years ago compared to it now. And then in Hebrew, It's definitely a different thought process than we think about it now. So, anyways, but you should definitely tithe, or if you find somebody, a minister, pastor on television, and you can tie it to their church. But you have to understand everything you have is the Lord, and the 10% is He's gonna bless you well and above, so you're gonna get your 10% back and well and above, if you understand that. And then also, when you're tied, be a cheerful giver. That doesn't mean you have to be like, oh yes. No, I mean, you have to believe in your heart that this is the Lord's money. It's not my money. So if you tithing and you like, oh, I gotta tithe, this gets on my nerves. I could be putting this money in investments or whatever. If you gonna be like that, you wasting your money. You need to keep it to yourself, and you're gonna continue to be on the struggle wagon. But God knows your heart. I'm not gonna go over this verse, but in the Bible, I don't know, um, when it talks about Cain and Abel, that God accepted Abel's offering, but he rejected Cain's because he knew the type of heart that Cain had. Cain probably, like I said, at that time, I can't remember if it was some vegetables or whatever, or animal that they were sacrificing, but probably something that was afflicted and ill. Or think about if you have an apple and the apple is all bad and brown. That's probably what Cain ended up offering to the Lord, the bad apple, instead of the good one, that would have been delicious and it was ripened and stuff like that. Or so that's probably what Cain ended up offering the Lord. But like I said, the Lord knows your heart and knows, if this is something that is truly, um you know if this is a blessing that you're appreciative of, and know that everything you have is His. So I hope that helped to um, open up everybody's thought process about this, and so you can know that you don't have to struggle, and there are tremendous blessings in giving the 10%, and also offering outside of that as well, but definitely at least 10%. So you're just benefiting yourself, and the Lord doesn't want you to struggle. He don't want none of his children to struggle. People that say that they believe in Him and have accepted Him. um, you don't have to be poor or broke or any of that. That's not that's not what He wants for His children, living on this earth, and that the sinners are supposed to be the only ones that are, living and thriving financially, and we as Christians are not. No, that's ridiculous. But anyway, so I hope this was a blessing. And on any of my videos, definitely leave comments below if you have any questions or anything like that, or if you have any like anything in the Bible, whatever that you want me to touch upon, or explain. I'll be more than happy to. All right, have a good day. Bye.